All righty, guys and gals, this is Blake Morrow. You are listening to oh, sorry. You guys thought I was broke, didn't you? Brock was like, that was a Zen moment. Kind of was a Zen moment. I guess it really was. All right. Jokes aside, let's continue. Hope everybody's having a great trading session. How do you guys like that? The Dow at all-time highs. You know, you can't really fault ever North America, right? They come in and they're like, yeah, we're buying, you know, every day we're buying. Tony said you're as long-winded as these equities. Yeah, no kidding. But you know, let's dissect that just a little bit. Look at the NASDAQ. It's heavy. You know, you can see I have an alarm set up here for the lows because frankly, if we break through those lows, I wouldn't want to be long equities. And I know I'm using the NASDAQ as a gauge here, but let's think about this. Okay. You know, and this happens quite a bit. This isn't like a normal occurrence. What I'm about ready to say. So, you know, I'm here in North America. North America comes in and just buys everything, you know, what happened? You know, got, let's say here's, you know, Spanish stocks bid up going into the close, you know, UK stocks into the close, France into the close, DAX at all-time highs, into the close at the 161% extension, by the way. And look, I'm not, I don't trade the DAX because I don't trade CFDs. How many of you guys trade DAX? I know Adam does, and I don't know if he's listening in here. He's like very active. If I was trading the DAX actively, I would short it here. And I'm just telling you guys that just because there's the long-term 161% extension right here. That's of the September 2020 highs to the October 2020 lows. And we're not quite to the 127% extension of the COVID move. That's still got a ways to go. But, you know, again, if I traded the DAX, I would say, well, I have limited risk right now being short right here. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to stop, but I got to finish what I'm going to say about the US session. So, I mean, look, you can let's do it. 1470, 14, let's just call it 14,800. Okay. 14,800. And let's say, I don't even know what these CFDs trade in. So let's say you're risking 14,840. I'm just throwing something up there. 14,840. And like, let's say you're looking for a move back down to right here, 14,000, let's just say 600. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Okay, it's a 5-to-1 risk-reward ratio, right? I mean, that's, you know, in my book, that's a good risk-reward ratio. So that doesn't mean that you have to be a full-size trade or, you know, trade super aggressively. I'm just saying that, you know, from a risk-reward perspective, if you're going to fade 161% extension, it's the place to do it. Now, let me finish what I was going to say about North America. So, you know, Europe's closed. You got, you know, German stocks up, you know, French, UK, we went through all that. Now, a lot of times at the end of the day, you start to see the S&P or, you know, other, you know, US equities start to give it up here. And it kind of leaves Europe holding the bag, right? Kind of holding the hot potato, if you will. Because if North America sells off, I'm just using this as an example, not saying that it's going to happen. But let's say, you know, NASDAQ hits new lows, drags down the S&P, you know, starts testing support. The Dow all-time highs reverses and comes back down towards 33,000, so it drops a couple hundred points. And we close near the lows, then Asia is probably going to see some profit taking because it's Friday. So I'm just trying to, give you guys an example. What I think is quite possible in this environment is, you can see some profit taking in a Friday, especially if, based on what we've seen today. Now, what is it that is the most important thing that we've seen in all of today? It really has been the rise in rates. We've seen rates and yields, move higher. I mean, the 10-year yields holding up, 30-year yields holding up. I mean, I would just venture to say that this is a consolidation of ready for a continuation. So if yields continue to stay strong, I think it's going to weigh on stocks eventually, and the NASDAQ might end up dragging down the rest of the markets. And then, like I said, you might see some profit taking in the weekend. So I just want you guys to kind of know where my head's at and what I'm thinking. Now, I'm not super excited about anything. Added a little bit of dollar Canadian down at the 26 level just a little while ago. If you're in the chat room, I said I was going to add some down here. I picked some up at 26. And I'm just kind of adding to the position small, not getting too excited. I shorted some Aussie New Zealand last night during the after the jobs report. I got pushed into the trade right here. Okay. Right here at the 118 level. And then when it was trading at 118.30, I stopped myself out because it was, approaching this breakout point. So I knew it was like, well, that didn't work out. So I got out of the trade. Now I was trading this triangle. I traded a couple weeks ago. If you guys were, remember, I was shorted it here. No, here. I guess it was last week. Was it last week? Yeah. Yeah. Cause it was on Friday. I want to say it was Friday. And then I got limited out on Sunday night, Monday morning, something like that. I made a good chunk of change right there. And then, excuse me, then I ended up giving back most of it today. And I'm irritated about that because I actually forgot I had an order out there. I'm, getting used to a new trading platform again. When you trade on a certain platform for so many years, like I was using JP Morgan, I know how it operates. I know exactly where I need to be looking at all times, open orders, what do I got lagging? Where's all my size adjustment? And then, going back to, back to my broker's platform, it's like everything's kind of clunky to me. So I totally forgot I had an order sitting out there. And so because of last night, I actually had to move my active order window to a different place. So it reminded me to look anyway. But let me point out a couple of things going into today. Anyway, so you kind of know where I'm at as far as the market goes. Let's talk about crude. First of all, crude looks bearish. I was going to put in a pattern in play today when we broke through 63, and I'm like, okay, I'll just wait for a bounce back to 64, and then I'm going to put a pattern in play in from a triangle. It just never bounced. And look at crude and look at how vulnerable it looks. I mean, this is a 4-hour trend line. If you guys are following along at home, this is a 4-hour trend line. This is from October, end of October to today. We're sitting on support. That's key. Now, the reason why that's key is because I am trading short Canadian dollars, short Mexican peso, and short Norway. All of them tend to be more sensitive to crude. So let me show you this chart. Okay. So let's do this chart and let's go to a daily. Okay, this is crude. This is a trading view CFD or ETN or whatever the hell they call it. It's basically their version of crude oil. But I'm going to compare with the US dollar, Norwegian krone. US dollar Canadian. USD Mexican peso. Okay. So what you see here is, there we go. That's probably a better view. What you see here is crude, which, by the way, you can see how inversely related they are, right? It's pretty obvious. What you see is crude has been making new highs. The Canadian has also been making new lows. I think a lot of that was the economic data the last week. But you can see Norway basically has been basing as crude has been rallying. And same with the peso. The peso has actually turned the corner already as crude had been rallying for the last several months. So if crude indeed starts to reverse here and we start to see a move lower in crude oil, these should theoretically move off of these lows. Okay. So that's kind of my thoughts there with why I'm, long those. It doesn't make me right. I mean, right now I'm making a little bit of money. I mean, I'm more slightly positive versus, killing it or anything like that. But what that shows you is what I'm thinking is if crude actually starts to reverse here, then we might see some of these other pairs come under some pressure. Now, crude oil, let's talk about that. So here we are in crude. Let's take this this high back in October 2018. Now, this is not correct, but let's just say 0, right? Okay. Let's just, because remember, this number is going to differ based on the feed that you're using, and what contract, and but I will point this out. Here's a high from, this is back in April of 2019. That was a false breakout, right? False breakout tends to lead to a breakdown. So the breakdown would be right here. So I'm assuming, making that assumption that crude, because it's weak and it's actually on its lows of the day, I don't know if it's going to sell off much more today. But if crude does sell off, then that's going to help the US dollar, Norwegian krona, and also probably the dollar Canadian, continue to bounce. I'm even though I like the dollar Canadian down here, I'm not going to get too terribly excited until we're back above 125. Because if we can close the week back above 125, that's pretty bullish. Then that gets a false breakdown. And remember, today's Thursday, so we're just talking going into tomorrow. A couple guys are talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, let me get rid of this. Bitcoin is closing in on 60,000. Excuse me. So I guess we're not going to do this head and shoulder pattern. Well, we may. I mean, we could, if we stop here, that's a 78% retracement, because we could do something like this. If this is a complex head and shoulder pattern, which it could be, I'm unsure yet, but this could also be a complex head and shoulder pattern. The neckline would be somewhere around here. Now, regarding Bitcoin, what's more important to me than setting up a head and shoulder pattern or any of that stuff, really what's more important to me in Bitcoin is just creating a lower high. That's really the most important thing to me. It's just, let's create a lower high, because if we create a lower high, then the risk of a move back down is good. And then that puts a higher probability on a break of this, this major trend line support, as we see in the divergent relative strength. But those are just things that God, crude is weak. Holy cow. So anyway, just some food for thought. Amir asked for IWM and Dow. I think I just showed you Dow, but I'll do it again. Here's the Russell. The Russell's strong. I mean, but if you're dealing with the Russell or the Dow, let's let's do this. Let me just, before I even go into the Dow, okay, and really, I don't have a whole lot to say about IWM that I'm not going to say about the Dow. Let's do this. It's bullish unless the NASDAQ breaks down. And here you can say IWM is bullish while we're above the lows from, yesterday. Okay. Because that's a 24% retracement. So if that breaks, then, we're going to see some selling. But it has to coincide with NASDAQ selling. And NASDAQ's weak. Let's not ignore the fact that NASDAQ's weak. The Dow's strong, but I wouldn't do anything with the Dow other than buy it unless the NASDAQ starts to break down. If the NASDAQ starts to break down, which it's pretty close to hitting lows of the session, then you have to start being very careful being long IWM or the Dow. Okay. Let's see here. And Amir, we just talked about the DAX, didn't we? Didn't we just talk about the DAX? Oh, I think you're asking if we should be careful shorting the DAX. Well, the DAX is very manageable risk. This is the difference between like the Dow. Like, I don't know where the Dow is going. Okay, I look at this chart and it's like, is it going to 36,000? Right? Maybe. But if you're looking at the DAX at least has the 161% extension here. So at least you know what your trading backstop is. And that's why we look at technical indicators and fibs and these levels. It's not necessarily, they're targets or rough targets, but also you can trade against them too, especially when you use like a golden fib, like that's what I mean. And yeah, I think if NASDAQ breaks down, it's going to weigh on the DAX futures. And really what's going to weigh on the DAX futures is if S&P and the Dow actually move lower. That's what I would think. But anyway, that's just kind of what I'm looking at now, guys. And, try to take it easy. And if you're long risk, just be a little careful. I mean, and just look at the currency just on my screen really quick. This is a little telling as you're looking at it. Okay. Dollar pairs minus the Aussie New Zealand here is not a dollar pair, and use the Euro Mexican peso. So we can get rid of those. Or do this, let's drop that down here. Actually, see if this drives me crazy or not. Okay. Look at all the dollar pairs here. Minus the lira, because Turkey's always got some weird crap going on. Dollar pairs are stronger across the board. All right. So think about that. How many people went home last night short dollars? I'm sure a lot. I was actually hoping the Aussie was going to get a little higher because I was going to short it in the 20s, but it's kind of already started to reverse a little bit. Anyway, that's it. Guys, have a great one. Thank you so much for always tuning in, and thank you so much for your support. Martin says, oh, hey, Martin. Martin Jr. says, really learning a lot with your views. It's educational. Thanks. You're welcome, Martin. I'm so glad to have you here. I really am. From the bottom of my heart. And you know why. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great one. And I'll talk to you soon.